The dismissive avoidant attachment style is one of the 4 attachment styles. We have one which is a secure attachment style, and then we have the other 3 insecure attachments, which are the anxious preoccupied, fearful avoidant, and dismissive avoidant. The dismissive avoidant partner is also called the emotionally unavailable partner. These are people who want relationships, but then they get scared when the relationship gets too intimate, and then they pull away. So their partners get very confused because they feel like there is this push-pull, cat and mouse game in the relationship, and they have no idea what's going on. They're tearing their hair out and thinking, is it something that I'm doing? Is it my partner? It can be a very crazy making dynamic. So the people usually who watch these type of videos are usually anxious preoccupied individuals, people who really want love and connection and are quite preoccupied with relationships and very anxious in relationships and sometimes clingy, and they're trying to figure out what is going on with my partner. They can also be fearful avoidants who are trying to work on themselves and improve their relationships. Or the last option is dismissive avoidants themselves. But usually when dismissive avoidants watch these type of videos, they are directed here through their partner who says, you know what, if you don't work on yourself and become more emotionally available, then the relationship is over for good. And that's usually the motivating factor for dismissive avoidants to come across this video. All right. So I'm going to go over a few telltale signs that the person you are attracted to or in a relationship with might have the dismissive avoidant attachment style. It's always better to see a coach or do a test online to see what their attachment style really is. You know, just this is for information and kind of like edutainment. Is that how you say it? Education and entertainment purposes, you know, and just help you to better relate to people. All right, so I'm going to go over like how to spot a dismissive avoidant person from the word go. So dismissive avoidants usually will keep their distance, okay? So their body language is not going to be very warm and welcoming, unlike the anxious or the fearful avoidants, which might give you a kiss on the cheek or hug you. They will want to keep their distance away from you. Their eye gaze might not always be focused on you. They might kind of zone into you and then zone out because that's how they self-regulate. Securely attached individuals can also do that. And sometimes the anxious and the fearful avoidant attachment style has a tendency to mix up those two because securely attached individuals have good boundaries, and the dismissive avoidant also seems very boundaried. But the difference here is that when it comes to boundaries, the dismissive avoidant is quite walled up. They will not want to talk about any personal information. Whenever you have a conversation with a dismissive avoidant, they might talk to you about logic or philosophies or what's going on practically in their life. They're not going to tell you about how they are feeling, what is really going on in their life. And that's how you can see that this is a dismissive avoidant partner instead of a securely attached individual. Because if you ask a personal question to a securely attached person, they will be vulnerable and they will share with you just not too much. They won't overshare like a fearful avoidant, but they will share with you a little bit about what's going on for them, how they're really feeling, how they really felt in a situation. Whereas the dismissive avoidant will be very logic-based, very analytical, and unwilling to share personal information or any information about how they truly feel about a topic. They will use words like, I think this and this and this about the situation, rather than how they are actually feeling and naming an emotion like sadness, anxiety, and so on. So they will try to keep the conversation surface level. If you ask them a deeper question, they might just deflect. They might say, they might joke about it, or they might say something like, oh, you know, that's life and we have to deal with it and move on, or some kind of philosophical answer. So that covers their body language, communication pattern, And then the pace of relationships, they are super slow to warm up in relationships. Unlike the anxious partner who will say, hey, first time they meet you and they'll invite you to a barbecue or braai, like we say in South Africa, on the weekend. Whereas the dismissive avoidant will be more distant and they take a long time to warm up. They're very slow in relationships. These are the partners that you've been dating for like 4 or 5 years, and the anxious, preoccupied, or even the secure partner might say like, hey, okay, let's maybe move on to the next phase of the relationship, whether that is meeting the parents or even naming your relationship and specifying that you are exclusive, or moving in together, or getting engaged to get married, or conceiving a baby, talking about a child. They are going to be very withdrawn and cautious because they in themselves doubt whether they are adequate enough. They also look like they have good boundaries, but what is actually happening is that they have been brought up in a way that makes them feel like it's either me or you in a relationship. What does this mean? So that it means that I can only look after myself, or I can look after the relationship. I can't have my needs met and the other person has their needs met and we are in the symbiotic relationship. It's me or you, which makes them feel like I can't really set small boundaries in relationships. I can't ask for my space. Therefore, relationships are going to engulf me. I'm going to lose myself in relationship. I will not have freedom. And they want freedom because they have learned that it is unsafe to be vulnerable in relationships. And therefore, I have to be autonomous. I have to take care of myself. Okay, so it's coming from a very big fear instead of this point of superiority, even though they might pretend like they are kind of superior, and in their head they might think they're a bit more superior to everybody else because everybody else is a lot more needy and they are more independent. Even that is coming from a wound in childhood, whether they know that consciously or subconsciously. Like the other 3 insecure attachment styles, they have a fear of abandonment that is underneath all of these layers of trying to be free in a relationship, fearing being stuck and being their freedom taken away. Because underneath all of that is this deep fear that if I really become vulnerable, if I show myself to somebody and that person might not like me, they might find out that I am this fraud, that I don't have it all together, that there are these imperfections about me, and they will reject me, they will abandon me. But they don't know that on a surface level. This only comes out after they've been doing a little bit more work on themselves, and of course maybe coaching or therapy or something like that. Okay, so that is their shadow. Okay, what I've described to you just now is core wounds and shadow. The core wound of I am going to be stuck or trapped in a relationship because I don't know how to set those boundaries. And the shadow aspect is that I do have this need for connection, and internally I have a lot of shame about myself. I don't even know that I have this deep wound of abandonment, and that even in coaching only comes out after some time, this fear of abandonment. They are also terrified of conflict, and therefore they believe that the perfect partner for me is going to be peaceful. The relationship is always going to be harmonious. They are never, okay, so you see these extreme ideas, there are never going to be any upsets or conflict in the relationship. If there isn't harmony, okay, so they're seeking harmony, if there isn't this harmony in the relationship, then we are not meant to be. And because they have this fear of conflict, and together with all these other fears of rejection and abandonment, they are also going to be flaw finding in their partners. So they're going to protect themselves from getting too close to a partner by finding fault. Okay, whether they find fault with the partner in their physical appearance, or something about their personality, something about the job, or some kind of incompatibility, they are going to find a flaw too when they feel like, oh, I'm getting too close, this is getting too intimate, it's touching my wound, then they pull away. Okay, and that is what is so confusing to other attachment styles, where they feel like, oh, everything is going well with the partner. Maybe we've gone on a few dates and it's been amazing, or, you know, we've been dating for a while and now it's the next stage of the relationship. And then all of a sudden the dismissive avoidant will pull away or even break up the relationship. So what can we do about this dynamic is that, you know, education is always amazing. So if you have a dismissive avoidant partner and they are willing to work on themselves, then send them a video or something like this, send them some information about attachment theory. They are super smart people, so they always want to educate themselves. And if something makes logical sense to them, they are willing to take it on and work with it. They usually do care about their partners, but they have a lot of difficulty with themselves internally, and even anxiety, which you might not see looking at them. They have anxiety about being in relationships. They question whether they are adequate in relationships. And sometimes they even question whether there is something wrong with them, because relationships come so much easier to everybody else. So they are very sensitive to criticism. So try not to point out these things and say like, oh, I saw this video and you see this is what you're doing wrong, and this is what you're doing wrong, and this is what you're doing wrong. Because on the surface, they're like a duck. On the surface, they'll be like, oh, cool, like a cucumber, nothing is affecting me. Underneath, in their physiology, their wounds are getting activated, and that is going to make them stonewall and withdraw even further away from you in the relationship, and you're not going to get anywhere with them to resolve the issues at hand. So see if you can approach things gently in a way that is more encouraging rather than harsh ways. All right, so and one more tip for the partner of the dismissive avoidant, or if you're the anxious or fearful avoidant and you're trying to change your attraction point and trying to be attracted to different partners and choose differently in your relationship, or trying to understand your partner, what's very important is that you start focusing more on yourself. Okay, because at the moment you're focusing so much on what are they doing, and then everything becomes about your partner instead of you stepping back and regulating yourself, learning how to reparent your own emotions, learning how to love yourself. Because it's only when you get to a point when you are secure in yourself, when you know your worth, when you love yourself fully and truly, and you're in charge of your emotions and that anxiety and the fears that come up and all your triggers, you are not going to attract the type of person that you want into your life. You're not going to be attracted to a secure person, because internally your reality is different from your past, right? So we are just attracted to what is familiar to our subconscious mind. So you're going to keep being attracted to people who are going to abandon you, who are going to reject you, just like most probably you are doing internally to yourself. So once you change that, you can be attracted to different people, and you can also be a different partner in your relationship, and that is going to give you different responses. What I mean by that, your dismissive avoidant partner stonewalls, they pull away. Instead of focusing on them and trying to search a million videos online about what is going on for my partner, doing tarot readings, I don't know what else, like phoning a psychic and trying to figure out what is he thinking or what is she thinking, what is the dismissive avoidant partner thinking basically, but rather focusing inwards and going like, okay, I feel really dysregulated right now. My wounds are being triggered and it's really, really difficult. What can I do? Can I do a pranayama? Can I speak to a friend? Do I journal? What are my resources where I come back to myself to center? And only when I'm centered, then do I want to engage with my partner again. All right, I hope you found this helpful. By the way, my name is Patricia Mahotska. I'm a relationship coach and I own the Love and Thrive School. You can check out my online course, Create Healthy Relationships, where I help people shift from surviving to thriving and create love, safety, and freedom in their lives, whether that means in their own life individually or as a couple. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I've got tons of other videos on my channel and also coming up, and I hope that you subscribe and like this if this topic interests you, and let's find love, safety, and freedom together. Till I see you next time, big love.